longevity mini-series. I am Dr. Dan Kalish, and I am here today to speak with you about detoxification and how that relates to longevity. And I'm pretty excited because I've got some brand new models, I guess you would call them, diagrams, models, that describe the different detox pathways, how they relate to get different environmental toxins, and how they relate to lab markers, and how you can start to use supplement protocols to fix them. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And that is pretty cool. So for those of you that are brand new, and I know a lot of you are, I am Dan Kalish. I founded the Kalish Institute 19 years ago, and I have trained thousands and thousands of doctors in how to interpret labs, how to handle patient management issues, how to script yourself and explain yourself and communicate with people so you can have a super successful practice. And I've been involved personally in the development of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of practices, more than I could ever count. And I've seen what practitioners do right and what they do wrong. And I'm here to help you guys be super successful, be profitable, make a lot of money, help a lot of people, have time for yourselves, and be on this planet for the right reason, to help others. And along the journey of these last, I was going to say 20 years, but it's been more like 30, 33 years, whatever. I've had the great privilege of working with some of the top lab people in the industry, and for long periods of time. I worked with Dr. Timmons for 6, 8 years, Dr. Lord now 10, 12 years, 15, whatever it is. And so I've had a lot of time in the trenches working with lab directors and scientists to really understand how these labs work. And then I've been in practice forever, and I've understand what it takes to do this stuff in real time, with real patients that are not necessarily, I don't know how to say it. There's challenges that you have in practice, right? And so we're trying to do reality-based training here, not like theoretical stuff. So we have this new program that we started this year. It's called the Longevity Certification class. You can register for it now. It starts September 9th, which is next week. And it's divided up into 4 different modules. The module that's starting in September 9th is the Detox module, hence the reason why we're doing the Detox class today, to kind of introduce you to it. So you can register for that now if you're interested in doing the whole certification program. And you can scan that QR code there. And there's 4 different sections to the longevity course, the full year. It's toxins, hormones and immune, and genomics, cardiometabolic and mitochondrial health, and then gut and brain. So 4 very robust sections. We release about 1 a quarter. And at the end of the year, you'll have been through all of these, and then you'll know a lot. And these are really intense classes. Like, I designed these a lot differently than the other courses that I teach. There's a lot of information in these. Let's just say that, like a lot. Like, no one's complaining that there's not enough information, because it's a complicated subject. And I just went to town on developing these classes. So it's pretty different. If you've taken my mentorship class in the past, which a lot of you have, this is pretty different, okay? Pretty different style of teaching and pretty different emphasis. And the emphasis is on, what do you do with that patient who's basically healthy now because you fixed all these different things, but now you want to keep them in your practice and you want to make sure that they stay healthy. That's what longevity is for. Or if you want to start a more longevity-oriented practice and bring in healthier people. Was just talking with one of my closest friends who's a medical doc, and he was saying how he's gotten like a dozen or two, healthy patients, in the last couple of years, and how great it is to have people that are coming into his practice that just are young, and young meaning in their 40s or early 50s, and just want to stay healthy. So that's a whole new model for functional medicine, I think, to not only work with chronically ill people, get them better, and then keep them healthy, which you can apply longevity principles to, but to start with people who are in pretty good shape already and keep them healthy. And I think that's really the wave of the future here. So you can also do separate classes. I'll mention that in a minute. But the 4 different modules, again, microbiome and brain health, toxins and detox, hormones and genomics, and then cardiometabolic health. That includes all this mitochondrial information. Okay, so those are the 4 different sections that play out throughout the year. And we cover a lot of stuff. And then separately, if you want, you can just do the detox module. If you don't want to commit to the whole year, totally fine to do that. You have the different QR code for that. And we'll be sending all these out to you in an email so you can keep an open eye for that. And you get a discount if you just do the detox module only too, okay? So now, and I'll come back, I'll show those same slides later in the talk because a bunch of people are still coming in. All right, so now let's take a look here at today's topic. I want to talk about the first half of this is going to be theoretical, but we're going to go fast. And then the second half is going to be interpreting labs so you can see how this could work. And what I want to show is not like a specific thing that you learn how to do that you can do, tomorrow with a patient that comes in, but more show how the whole conceptual framework of working with detox pathways could play out in a longevity practice. And so rather than preparing a special lecture and just like doing this little thing, I'm going to actually just show you snippets from the longevity course itself and then try to tie all that together so you can see if this class is a good fit for you or not. You're for sure going to walk away learning something here, but I want to try to do a bigger picture concept than just talk about glucuronidation for an hour and then tell you, oh, you should use calcium D-glucarate, okay, like whatever. You could probably just Google that and figure it out. I want to show you like the bigger picture model. And being able to conceptualize it, you can match nutrients to pathways, and you can match pathways to the lab markers, so you know exactly what you can do. You can see exactly how BPA or mercury has affected this person's system and how that's manifesting in one of the four more common disease processes that we want to reverse in terms of preventing aging, reversing aging, slowing down aging. And we'll talk a little bit about the hallmarks of aging and the detox pathway specifically. We're going to get into some pretty big detail. Okay. So let's take a look at and then I'm going to, again, the second half of this session, we're going to look at labs and design programs. So let's start off at the beginning here. And again, these are snippets from lectures from the longevity module that we're about to start. I thought I'd start off with the model. So I thought about this, I don't know, for like 30 years, and I think this is the easiest model to explain. If you don't like this model, I am open to that. Just flip it around, do it in a different way, but you need to have a model to explain to patients what's happening here. The first stage of the model, just figure out what the total body burden is. What are the toxins that are accumulated in that person's body? If they don't have any toxins, you don't have anything else that you have to do. It's over, right? If they pass that first level, then there's nothing to talk about. They're never going to pass that first level because every single human being on the planet that's been tested in the last many years, is full of toxins. So it's going to be something. Everybody has something. Most of us have a couple hundred identifiable environmental toxins in our tissues. I know that sounds grim, but it's the truth. So the second phase is that you think about, they have toxins. I see what they are. What am I going to do about that in terms of organs? Well, I better make sure that their detox organs are working really well. You don't want to pull a toxin out of storage areas in the body if the person can't flush it out of their system entirely. So the detox organs like the gut, the liver, the gallbladder, they have to be working really well. And if they're not, you got to fix them before you pull out toxins. Otherwise, people will get sicker, okay? The third step is to understand and analyze the cellular damage that's occurred. Is the DNA screwed up? We have a test for that called 8-OHDG, which is a direct measure of oxidative stress occurring at the level of DNA. Are the lipids damaged? That would put you at risk. Obviously, if there's DNA damage, that puts you at risk for cancer. Is there lipid damage? Lipid peroxides is exactly designed to test whether you have a problem with oxidation or damage to lipids. What would that cause? Problems with your brain, because your brain is 60% fat, and problems with your cardiovascular system, because oxidized lipids is what's behind atherosclerosis and problems with the arteries and blood vessels and heart attacks and all that stuff. We want to see if proteins are damaged. And then you want to test for things like oxidative stress, insulin resistance, inflammation. That's at the cellular level. And then you want to take it to this fourth level where you're thinking about, okay, what bigger picture systems are impacted here? What's really been impacted? The nervous system, the brain, right, in particular, the immune system, Now back to cancer-related problems, cardiovascular system, back to heart disease, and then metabolic function, which would be more along the lines of obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance. So is there a problem with the brain, potentially, the heart, with your DNA, which puts you at risk for cancer, or a problem with metabolic dysfunction? And those are the four main problems that are causing people to live shorter lifespans than they should anyways, right? Neurodegenerative problems, memory loss, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, heart attack, you're not going to last too long, cancer, and metabolic dysfunction. And then be able to tie this together so that you can see, here are the toxins, here are the organs that aren't working well, here's how it's been expressed in terms of damage, and then what's happening in terms of the systems. And if you think about it, it's so easy, right? If you think about it this way, because you can explain, this is all obviously to explain to patients. But if you think about it this way, like let's say that they have a ton of mercury, BPA, and 3 other, benzene, toluene, and arsenic. Okay, so you see what all the toxins are. Then you assess their organs. You can tell them, oh, well, we need to really work on your gut and your phase 2 liver detox to get it to the point where you can get these toxins out. And we tested you, and we can see there's DNA damage that's being directly, caused by this inability to clear these toxins, and there's some damage to lipids, so you're at risk in the future of developing cancer or heart disease. And the whole point of longevity is to stop that from happening, okay? So this is the early warning signs that you can detect decades before there's going to actually be a cancer or be a heart or have a heart attack, right? Way decades before we're trying to address this. Okay, so that's the 4 sections. I think that's what I want to talk about for that slideshow. And again, I'm just grabbing slideshows from the class so you can see. And let's go, and then let's see, we're right on time. And then we're going to review labs based on what I'm talking about here, so you can set up some programs. Now this I'm pretty excited about. Let's see, do I have the right one? Yeah. Okay, so there's 6 different phase 2 pathways, and you kind of got to memorize these. I don't think there's any way around that. You just have to deal with it. And it's not pleasant, but glucuronidation, glutathione conjugation, sulfation, methylation, acetylation, and amino acid conjugation. And once you start to memorize and learn what those 6 pathways are, then you can see how those pathways relate to lab markers, how those pathways relate to where the damage is occurring. Remember, there's 4 areas of damage. It could be DNA, it could be lipids, it could be proteins, right, like that. Okay, so where's the damage occurring? Is it putting you at risk for a brain problem, a heart-related problem, cancer-related problem, or metabolic problem? Okay, and then you can see the nutrients and the pathways that you need to fix to get these toxins out. And so the 6 different pathways are like a grounding exercise. They're like the foundation to then see what nutrients, what test markers, what systems could be affected. How are we going to try to sort through and fix all this? And what's very interesting about these 6 different pathways is it's pretty basic, right? You have these molecules that you just glom onto the toxin that bring them out, that bring the toxins out. So like for glucuronidation, it's a glucuronic acid molecule. For glutathione conjugation, obviously it's a glutathione. For sulfation, it's a sulfate group. For methylation, it's a methyl group. For acetylation, it's an acetyl group. And for amino acid conjugation, it's 3 different amino acids, glycine, taurine, and glutamine. So this attached group here, that's the thing that's going to grab the toxin and pull it out through this given pathway here. So now you can see where I'm going with this, right? Because this is your hit list of things that you want to check on and give the person solutions-wise to fix all of this. If you understand these pathways, it all starts to come together and you'll have a much more sophisticated view of how to deal with these kinds of problems. And you'll be a better clinician, a much better clinician. I went in the other day to get my, I have a 1960s Chinelli road bike, and I wanted to get new brakes on it, which sounds like a pretty simple thing to do, it's like, but it's such an old bike that there's not a lot of companies that make brakes for it, right? And so I'm talking to this mechanic, this guy's name is Miles, and he's just brilliant. He's going to school to become a mechanical engineer, and he just goes into this literal like PhD level dissertation on 1960s Campanolia brakes and what's now available on the market to make it all work. But his depth of knowledge was like stunning. And he ended up showing me this thing online. I was like, you should buy these. They're 180 bucks. So I bought them. But the point of the story is that like his depth of knowledge allowed him to arrive at the exact right solution for me as a person that needed to replace these brakes from the 1960s. So when it seems like some of these facts that I'm talking about today are kind of obscure, you don't need to know them. But when you get in a patient who's like mercury toxic and has arsenic and toluene and benzene, you kind of need to know these pathways because it's going to allow you to pick the exact right supplement protocol to fix that exact person's exact problem based on the pathways that aren't working, the toxins that they have. You can pull all this together. Okay, so you want to be at the level of miles, for brakes, but you're like, this is the exact thing. You're going to take 6,000 milligrams of glycine, and that's going to fix this. And like, I can show you why, right? You want to be at that level. It's just makes you a better practitioner. It'll keep you safe too. It'll keep you from harming other people. But one of the things I also want to point out is that when you have an environmental toxin exposure, and let's say that it's depleted your methyl groups, guess what? It means you don't have the capacity to methylate in other ways. It's not just about detox. Or if you have a toxin that's depleting your acetyl groups, guess what? Okay, acetylation screwed up, but acetyl groups do a lot of other things, like a whole lot. And so you can see how environmental toxin exposure could trigger a problem, but that's going to cascade out to cause all kinds of different health issues. So again, knowing these pathways, you can start to put these things together. And I have slides that we don't have time to go through all these, but if you take the class, you're going to get all these slides. Core function, glucuronic acid or glucuronidation, that's pretty important, all the things that it does. And then look here, see, this is what I was just trying to say, is that let's say that you have, for some reason, your glucuronidation is screwed up as a pathway. It does a ton of other things too. So it not only is related to drug detoxification, but it's also related to steroid hormone regulation. It's related to carcinogen removal, to neuroprotection, right? So once there's one problem, it can cascade out and you can start to have a hormone imbalance, a higher risk of cancer, and a higher risk of a neurodegenerative disease because your glucuronidation is not working right. And just can fix it. That's longevity to me at its finest. Glutathione is probably the best example. If your glutathione levels are low because you've had to detoxify a lot, then all the other things that glutathione does are compromised. Okay, so then here, just to give you some perspective, this is the relative daily activity of major phase 2 detox pathways. So 70% of what's happening is glucuronidation. That's kind of interesting to know. 2% of what's happening is acetylation. 4% of what's happening is methylation. Now, it means that to a certain extent, glucuronidation is very important. It doesn't mean that methylation is not important. It just means that methylation is a smaller percentage of what's actually happening. But there's some very specific things that methylation is doing that are extra important, like getting rid of your estrogens to help prevent breast cancer. So, but I just thought it's nice to see like the scale. If there's a glucuronidation problem, you gotta like get on that, right, and fix that. That's not like an aside. And if you can fix glucuronidation with something like beta, calcium D-glucarate and the other things that we use for that, that's going to impact the majority of the clearance pathways in your liver. Now, if you impact, I'm not saying that methylation is not important because there's some very specific things that methylation does that are extra important, but this just gives you a sense of scale. Again, here are the 6 different pathways. And then this is the diagram I'm the most excited about. So let me just step you through this so you can see. And again, this is more about the thinking process. So here's let me get my glasses on. I don't think I see better with my glasses, but I think better with them. Okay, so glucuronidation, well, what could screw that up? Medications, hormones, etc. What are the potential solutions? Oh, here they are: magnesium, manganese, glucuronic acid, glutathione conjugation. What could screw that up? Heavy metals, mold, pesticides. How do we solve that? cysteine, glycine, glutamine, selenium, vitamin C. Sulfation, what could screw that up? Hormone-related breakdown, BPA specifically damages sulfation. What do we do to solve that? Methionine, cysteine, molybdenum, and B6. And it kind of matters which pathway, because I see molybdenum over here and I see manganese over here, right? This is very, very different. And then methylation, same thing. It's detoxifying and clearing neurotransmitters, hormones, and environmental toxins. How do we fix it? Folate, B6, B12, SAMe, choline, magnesium, zinc. So you can see for each of these pathways, there's the potential damaging agent, like for amino acid conjugation, it's benzoate, and then the potential solution, glycine, taurine, glutamine, and B6. So again, just as a framework, so you can see, oh, okay, I see which pathway screwed up. Like, let's say it's a glutathione conjugation problem. You run the test, you see, gosh, they have a lot of mercury and lead. And then you see on the other part of the test, oh, their glutathione's not doing so well. That makes sense. Or they have a mold problem, you know, and you realize, oh, there's a problem here too. What am I going to do? Here's the solution. So starting to create a model here so that you can have a framework to operate within. Okay. Yeah, that's that. And we've got a couple more minutes, and we're going to look at labs. I think there's just one more slideshow I had. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool here too, because I put all these together for you guys. I know it's like I was trying to give this silly bike shop example. I know some of this stuff sounds like, oh, this is just so in the weeds. But if you're running an environmental toxin panel and you see BPA, or you see toluene or xylene problems or styrene, or you see arsenic or mercury or lead, you need to have some general framework for how that's impacting the body, right? You need to have some general framework for that. Otherwise, it's just hard to make sense of it, you know? It's really hard to make sense of it. And let me show you here. So again, that's pretty in the weeds where you're looking at specific pathways and what messes them up and how you fix them. But let's just go out for 1 second to the 30,000 foot view. And this is one of the introductory lectures from the class. Glyphosate is not your friend. Oh yeah, this is an example of just like one environmental toxin like glyphosate. And it's not funny, but you gotta have a sense of humor when you do this kind of work. And look at what it's the title of the article: hepatotoxicity, nephrotoxicity, hemotoxicity, carcinogenicity, and clinical cases of endocrine, reproductive, cardiovascular, and pulmonary system intoxication. So this is, it's not funny, but you know, it's insane, right? That's why it's funny. Just glyphosate could screw up all of these things: your liver, your kidneys, your DNA, all of that. Isn't that insane? And so one toxin can damage a whole bunch of body systems. That's one way to think about this. And there's all kinds of research on this. It's not like my personal opinion, even a little bit. And then you can look at it from the opposite standpoint, right? Where instead of a single toxin that can cause all this damage, you can think of like a whole category of toxins, like endocrine disruptors. And here's a list of them: BPA, phthalates, PCBs, dioxins, atrazine. Yeah, it's just a pretty long list, you know. And these are summary slides. These aren't even like really the whole thing. And then from all that, you can have cardiovascular disease, obviously, because the main effect of environmental toxins is oxidative stress. And the main thing that damages your blood vessels is oxidative stress. And there's actually people that have studied this. 2021 analysis estimates 19% of global heart disease deaths are from ambient, you know, particulate matter in the air from air pollution. That's not crazy. It's wild. But hey, if you measure the pathways and you figure out their oxidative stress, you can correct these things before they become a life-threatening problem. So there's toxins impacting the cardiovascular system in specific pathways and all this. Same thing for cancer, same thing for neurotoxins, how they affect. But once you get a bigger picture on this, then you can see, and as you see where I'm going, right? Where we try to tie together then those original 4 things that I talked about. So what are the toxins that are present? What body systems, what organ systems do you use to clear those toxins? What's the cellular damage like? And then how is that manifesting in the 4 big problems, which would be a heart disease, neurodegenerative decline, DNA-related damage or cancer and metabolic disease. I mean, if you could help prevent or reverse brain damage, heart disease, cancer, and metabolic disorders in your patients, that's like a pretty big longevity ticket there, right? And there's, again, more research on this than you can imagine for each one of these things. 30% of global burden of heart disease, 20% of cancers from toxins. It's a pretty major issue. I don't think you can have a successful longevity program if your patient has 116 toxins in their body, you know? And when you look at what the overall status is of most people in industrialized countries, it's pretty bad. So you kind of have to deal with this, right? Okay, so now, and oh, we're right on time. Look at me. Let's just look at one or two. I got like 2 minutes left. So let me just show you a few of these things because when we're going to look at labs in a minute, okay? And before we do that, I just want to zip through these 6 different pathways so you can get a sense. Again, I said them a bunch of times already, but glucuronidation, okay? And you can see the nutrients related to it, how you can support it. Glutathione conjugation, that one's kind of easy, right? Glutathione support, you kind of know what that is already. Sulforaphane, cysteine, N-acetylcysteine, those things. Sulfation, this is my favorite. I don't know why I really like the sulfation pathway. Sulfur things, sulfur donors, etc. Methylation pathway, that's my second favorite. It's a small percentage of total detox, but super important. Okay, and if again, I'll say this one more time. If you deplete your methylation pathway because you're clearing a whole bunch of toxins related to methylation, guess what? You can't methylate very well. And think of all the other things that we do that involve methylation. Amino acid conjugation and acetylation, those are the final couple. All right, so now, oh, and maybe just, I should just zip through the nutrients in case you're new to this. If you're new to this, then you probably don't know these things already. So let me just zip through. I can do them on the summary page. I think this is easier. So then the nutrients that we're about to go on a lab test based hunt for toxins and how that's manifesting, right? So the nutrients though, magnesium, B vitamins, cysteine, glycine, glutamine, selenium, sulfur amino acids, molybdenum, B6, again, the B vitamins, folate, B6, B12, SAMe, choline, glycine, taurine, glutamine, B6, acetyl-CoA, B5 is pantothenic acid. So you can see these are dominated by some pretty simple things, right? B vitamins, some amino acids, some minerals. Those are the general categories that we're looking at on the solution side. Okay, so now, let's look at a lab. Here. Hang on, sorry. I had this pulled up earlier, but it's something screwed up. Here we go. Oh, well, while I'm waiting for that to pop up, let me just say, for those of you that joined us late, here's our mini series that we are starting our longevity certification program September 9th. If you're interested in this kind of work, in that class, there are lectures, like I just gave you a little taste of some of the lectures, and then there are clinical case review sessions where you submit labs and we review them. We really try to drill down on all the pathways and understanding how to actually set up successful programs. If you want to do the whole year-long certification, there's 4 different sections. We're starting with the detox section this month. Then we're going to get into hormones, immune, and genomics. Then early in the new year, we're going to get into cardiometabolic, and then the last of the 4 is the gut and brain. Okay, and these sections are, each of these modules has, I don't know, maybe 30 to 40 hours of lecture. It's pretty intense. There's a lot of material in them, so it's going to take you a few months to get through them, and they're dense, you know. And then each of these modules has Let's Interpret Lab sessions, so we try to answer all your questions and get, you know, real cases that you're doing working. So the lab review part is usually everybody's favorite part. Again, it's microbiome and brain health, toxins, hormones, genomics, and immune. and cardiometabolic. Those are the 4 different sections in the whole year-long thing, okay? And then you can, if you want, register for the whole year, and you can also, if you just want to sign up for the toxins thing only, totally, probably, I don't know, it's not a bad idea either. If you just want to check it out, if you like it, you can do the other ones later. You can just do the toxin section only and not do the whole year certification. And it's all starting next week, okay? Let's see, and who can take these? Anybody. Medical doctors, nurse practitioners, chiropractors, acupuncturists, health coaches. This class is designed, anyone who's interested in being able to design longevity programs. That's really who these are for. Okay, so now let's go grab the lab here. So let's start off with one of these, which is a toxin screen. So remember, there's 4 different stages. The first stage is, what toxins are present. And so you order one of these tests, and these are a beast of a test. These are all really complicated. That's why I'm trying to develop, not trying to, this is why I have developed these models, because if you try to learn about all the environmental toxins, it'll take years before you even know what they are. You need a degree in microbiology and another degree in environmental science and probably 3 PhDs to just understand what's actually happening. So it's just not realistic for clinicians to just figure all that out. It's just not possible. But if you can just think of it in the simplest terms, like, are there environmental toxins present in the body or not? Are there metals? Are there chemicals or not? And then what pathways are being damaged? You're going to see all this on the lab, so you don't have to memorize, BPA damages this pathway. You don't have to memorize that at all, because you're going to measure for the toxins, and then you're going to see which pathways are screwed up on the other testing. See what I mean? But you want to be able to put it together in an articulate way to explain to patients. You have, these 16 chemicals are at high levels. That has impacted your oxidative stress, your metabolic health, and these, 3 different liver detox pathways. I think we should work on this, and then we're going to put you on a program. We're going to wait 6 months. We're going to stop the program for a week, and we're going to run a retest. And it's very satisfying to see someone's mercury levels go from like super high to normal. I can't tell you, that's really, really satisfying. It's like, as a practitioner, you're like, wow, that really just did something. You had all this mercury in your body, now you don't. How do you feel? My headaches are gone, or my energy is so much better, or I can work out better in the gym. And again, these are longevity programs. These aren't really designed for super sick people. These are designed to just keep people super healthy. So this is a total tox burden from Vibrant Lab. Total tox burden from Vibrant Labs, or Vibrant Wellness. Total tox burden. And you can just see, I just want to show you what the test looks like. But you can see they flag all these different chemicals, heavy metals, mycotoxins, as well as chemicals, heavy metals, and mycotoxins, or mold type toxins. Got a ton of those. Oh my gosh. Heavy metals. And all these. A lot of stuff. And then environmental toxins. But it's simple to break it down to mold, chemicals, and heavy metals. And then that's all the exogenous stuff in general, right? Then there's also endogenous toxins, and those we discover on organic acids testing and gut testing. So endogenous toxins, like if you see a high beta-glucuronidase on a stool test, that's an example of a toxin-related problem, but the person's generating it internally. And then ammonia toxicity is also generated internally. So it's external toxins and internal toxins. We're testing for all of them. And we had a case yesterday in class. It was in the mentorship mini-series class, actually. I just pulled up a random case by chance, and it was massively, the mitochondrial markers were all completely destroyed, just like as bad as it could get for the mitochondria. So then we had a metabolic problem, right? So this person is going to have trouble losing weight. They're going to have insulin resistance. They're going to be super inflamed because their metabolic function is completely screwed up. And then I'm thinking, I don't know, why is this happening? And we kept looking in the lab, and we found that they had the biggest problem by far that was driving all of it was ammonia toxicity. Okay, and that you can see that on organic acids testing. And ammonia is something we generate internally as we break down protein. But this particular patient couldn't do that very well. Had a huge amount of ammonia in their body, which was damaging their mitochondria. So you can have endogenous or internally produced toxins from the gut, from ammonia problems, like that's a urea cycle defect, or you can have what we're looking at here, which are externally generated ones from the 80 plus thousand environmental toxins that are out there now. The more that you study this, the more you appreciate that it's a miracle that any of us are still alive. If you look at the total toxic burden that's happening. So anyways, that's the general test. Total tox burden, vibrant wellness, mycotoxins, chemicals, and heavy metals, all three. Okay, get it from Vibrant. It's not that expensive. And that lays out, the framework for what we want to start with. So that's step one, okay? And you guys are welcome. Type in questions because I'm going to review a couple labs here, and then we're going to have time for questions. And I'm going to design some programs. So this is a NutraVal from Genova. And so we're talking about, and we just saw on the previous diagram, liver detoxification stuff, right? So let me just show you that in case I don't know how many of you have a lot of experience in this field and how many of you this is like brand new. For those of you that are brand new, let me just show you this one image in case you're lost already. Here. And you get ammonia out using arginine and citrulline. So here, let's just cut to the chase here. I'm just gonna, here. So these are phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox pathways. And those are the 6 I keep rattling off over and over again. Now this gives you a schematic for how you start to fix these. So here are the nutrients that are used for phase 2: NAC, glycine, taurine, glutamine, ornithine, arginine, methylation support in general, methionine, and cysteine. Okay, these are the nutrients used for phase 1, the B vitamins. And we saw a bunch of these on those other diagrams I was showing. And then the antioxidant protective nutrients, because you're working with toxins, you got to use a lot of antioxidant support, are the classics: A, C, E. Selenium is curious because it's a mineral, but it's a very powerful antioxidant. CoQ10, bioflavonoids, pycnogenol, all these things, And then of course there's foods that you can do this with. But the general categories will be phase 2 support, phase 1 support, and then antioxidants. And then to get the toxins out, you want to make sure they have binding agents, fiber, things like that, and then make sure they're well hydrated so they can get them out through the kidneys and the urine as well. So fiber is a binding agent to get toxins out. Water is an agent that's going to flush out, water-soluble toxins. And then there's these 3 different phases here. So that's kind of what we're looking for on this next set of labs. And we're not going to get into all the damage stuff. Let's just go right to the toxin part. Okay, here. And clearly it says toxin and detoxification markers. So specifically, this is a marker for glutathione. So if that marker is high, they're low in glutathione. And we just saw that's one of the 6 of the major pathways. So now you know they need glutathione. See, it's not that hard. And then, if you look at the oxidative stress markers, the glutathione levels are really low. So this just confirms that they need glutathione. So we can go back to our pathways. You can start to correlate that with which toxins are in their system. If you want to get to that level of detail, you want to be like in the weeds on this, or you could just say, hey, this person needs glutathione. And that's going to help with their detoxification. And then, there's 1 or 2 other things we should look at that are pretty important. So remember when I was showing you those diagrams and the B vitamins kept coming up over and over again? It's like, oh my gosh, another pathway that's dependent on B vitamins? Yeah. Well, here's one: folate. Fig glue, when this goes high, shows an extreme need for folate. Remember, that's key for some of those pathways. These markers here are related to the B vitamins also. And remember, there's a bunch of B vitamins that are involved in all this. They show up over and over again. So B vitamins are very important for, clearance of toxins. And then there's a super important marker. This is like top 10 markers. If I think back on all the years I worked with Glenn Frieder, he's a naturopath that trained me originally in clinical nutrition when I was like 10 years old. Now I was like 29 maybe when I met Glenn. I was so young. I can't believe he was so nice to me. Anyways, he took me under his wing, and Glenn trained me in clinical nutrition for like 5 years. And we spent a lot of time together. Anyways, I need to send him a thank you card or something like that. Thank you, Glenn, for making me the person I am today. But one of the things that I just watched Glenn do over and over again was fix every known medical condition that you could imagine with vitamin B6. Like, it was just shocking. I had no idea as a young practitioner. So this marker here is like really important, xanthurenic acid. Okay, it's specific, targeted, individual, only means one thing marker. It only means that you're deficient in B6. All right. And you should be at the highest end of the high is 0.96. That already is a big problem. This person's above the reference range. This person has a massive B6 deficiency. And as you saw from those pathway chart things I was showing, if you have a problem with B6 and folate, you are in serious trouble for detox capacity. So right off the bat, we've got our list here. I'm going to write it down. Folate, B6, glutamine, I'm sorry, glutathione. We saw 2 glutathione markers already. Okay, so let's keep going here. And I just, again, want to give you the general sense of how you orient yourself with these labs. We talked about the glutathione already. And now here's the amino acids. Now, amino acids are involved in a lot of the different detox pathways. And we just saw that whole list of ones I just showed you. It's all amino acids. Hang on a second. Let me go back to there. Here. This is a nice summary. So for phase 2, NAC or cysteine, that's amino acid, glycine amino acid, taurine amino acid, glutamine amino acid, ornithine amino acid, arginine amino acid, methylation, not, methionine amino acid, cysteine amino acid. So pretty heavily amino acid dependent. So what do you think you should check? Oh, and wait, hang on a second. And then remember phase 1, B2, B3, B6, folate, B12, okay? Pretty B vitamin dependent. So do you think that you can detox successfully if your B vitamins are really low? No, you can't. And what about if your amino acids are low? Well, it depends on which one, I guess. But like this one is the worst one to have low. Glycine, that's just so going to undermine your detox capacity as much or more than anything you could ever imagine. Just being glycine deficient. There's no way you can detoxify properly if you're glycine deficient. There's so many different things that glycine does for this, okay? So like right off the bat. Oh, and we just saw methionine, remember on my list? There's methionine low too. So this person is just in serious trouble from a longevity standpoint. So let's just keep it simple so I can design a program. Let's do glycine and methionine. And you see how you can build up this, what would it be? Individualized, personalized longevity program to get all the toxins out. Why is that important? Because it's how we can prevent neurodegenerative disorders, heart attacks, cancer, and metabolic disease. Those are the 4 things that kill people over time. And so if you can get in and fix the oxidative stress, B vitamin problems, get these toxins out, you're going to reduce the impact of those potential diseases on somebody decades before there's a problem. Okay, is that enough? I'm just trying to show an example of this. Let's see what else is happening here. Well, this is kind of cool. So let's just throw this in the mix. The omega-3 index is a little off. So you could do some, that's peripheral. All right, let's just design a program now. So this could be a perfectly healthy person who feels great all the time, but they want to do a longevity program. Maybe they want to work out a little harder, or they have some sort of energy deficit and a little tired. So now we know that they had, I'm going to make some of this up. Let's just say, because just for the sake of time, mercury and arsenic were high. They weren't, but let's just pretend they were. Elevated. And high beta-glucuronidase. I can never spell that. That's not spelled right. I know that. I can never spell it. All right, I'm not even going to try. It's beta-glucuronidase, spelled wrong. That's enough, right? Okay, B vitamin deficiency, low glutathione, low glycine. I put that in all caps 3 times because it's so important. I know how to spell glycine. I can spell that right there. And what else did we say? Oh, methionine. That's pretty important. I'll put that in caps too. Why? Methionine is the thing you need for methylation. So that's, remember the pathway? That's one of the detox pathways. Glycine you need for the glutathione conjugation thing. Okay, that's again, glutathione conjugation right there. This is phase 1, sorry, phase 1. These are all also going to be associated with phase 2 in general, but we're breaking it out to the pathway. So again, you try to figure out what's the toxin, what are the nutrients that are deficient, what are the amino acids, which pathways is it, does it all fit together and make sense? So you're not missing anything, yeah? And then you would set up the program. So you do something like B complex with additional, let's say B complex, let's just do that right there. Let's give it a couple of those a day. And then let's say B6, that usually comes in a 50 milligram. That person was really low, remember? So you kind of load them up on the B6. Folate, get a folate, add in that. And then glycine. Again, it's just an example here, 500 milligrams, you want to give a lot of glycine. NAC for the glutathione, or you could use glutathione itself if you want. Let's do that just for fun. Glutathione, 100 milligrams, give that 3 times a day. Methionine, we mentioned, 500 milligrams, let's give 2 of those twice a day. And then a multi-pack. Then what do? Run this program for 6 months, stop, retest after they've been off all the supplements for a week, and you should see the bad stuff going down, less mercury, less arsenic, right? You should see the B vitamin markers improving, maybe not all the way. You should see glycine coming up. You see the liver working. And even if they're a wellness patient, even if they didn't have a lot of complaints to start with, they should come in and say, you know what, didn't really know this was a problem, but I am sleeping so much better. I didn't really know this was a problem, but my sex drive is so much better. I wasn't really thinking this is a problem. I thought it was a normal part of aging, but my joints are so much better. We just had my mom's 88th birthday party, and every time I see my mom, this is so funny, she will bring this up, and well, especially on her birthday, she's like, Danny, and because she used to have really bad arthritis, right? And her hands and joints were like really swollen and totally normal now. She used to wear glasses and have all these vision problems. My mom like literally threw her glasses away. And all this started like 10 or 15 years ago when I put her on a neutral valve based program just like this. My mom is 88 years old and she's going to Alaska in a week. And she was talking to my wife and I about going to her best friend's house to borrow these boots that are glacier friendly so she can jump off the boat and get onto the glacier in Alaska. So my mom is like, whatever. This stuff really works. And she do this in practice. And like, if you think about my mom, like she wasn't like complaining about anything. She had the arthritis. She didn't see that well. She just thought I was like aging. And now she's like super dynamo. And it's just this kind of stuff. I test her every year. That's it, you know? I mean, in fact, this kind of looks like her program almost. All right, so now let's go to bring this up so you guys can sign up for this class because that's the whole point of me doing this. You have 2 options. You can sign up just for the detox module. You're going to get all this information and learn how to do this stuff. Or you can sign up, if you're super psyched, you can sign up for the whole year-long certification. Either one is fine. You can contact my office and talk to us about it. All right, so let's get to questions for a second here. First, we have just enough time. All right. So there's a bunch of questions around which companies these are. So Vibrant Wellness does the total tox screen thing. Genova was the NutriVal that I was showing. There's a bunch of different companies. We can, if you guys join the class, I can tell you more. I know a lot, probably too much about the lab industry. I've worked in several different lab companies. I've worked for several different supplement companies. So I try to be as honest as I can in these courses around what companies I use and which ones I trust, you know. And that's a big hurdle to get over too, because it's hard to know if you don't have the background and knowing who all these people are, who to trust. But that's certainly one of the services we offer in these courses, okay? And then there's a bunch of questions also I'm going to answer as a group, which is the danger or risk of using these things. And so every single potential treatment you might offer can cause a huge problem. So as much as B6 can fix a lot of things, you can absolutely make somebody toxic in B6. That makes people really sick. It gives them like neuropathies and stuff like that. As much as, you know, what's another example? Glycine could completely help somebody who's low in glycine. I don't know what would happen if you gave a lot of glycine to somebody that's not low in glycine, but I'm sure it would be a bad outcome. I've never done it, so I've never looked that one up. But all of these supplement protocols are only really designed to be done when you really know what you're doing. You know, like if I walked into my regular doctor's office and she said to me, look, you know, it looks like we just got your, you know, yearly lab work back. Can you just wait a minute? Because I'm going to call, you know, uh, LabCorp and talk to one of the techs that answers the phone over there and see what I should do about your labs. I was just like freak out. I was like, hey, lady, didn't you go to medical school to learn all this? Haven't you been in practice for 20 years, right? So like, you can't just like jump in and start doing complex functional medicine programs without some proper training. And that's the whole reason why the Kalish Institute exists. I had that training from Glenn Frieder, from Bill Timmons, from Dr. Richard Lord. I had decades of intensive training. And I pretty much know what I'm doing now, you know, but you have to have some kind of a mentor, some kind of person that's going to be there and hold your hand for those first couple of years while you're learning how to do this stuff. So those of you that are typing in these questions about, is B6 dangerous? Yes, it's totally dangerous. And you can't just like try to figure this out by calling the supplement company hotline or calling the lab company and trying to learn this stuff from somebody who works at a lab. That's not the way that medicine works. There's schools for this. And you have to have a mentor and some kind of a program. That's the whole point of why I'm doing this. So if an amino acid is high, it depends on which amino acid it is, but usually it means that they're not breaking that amino acid down. Okay, that's assuming that you're doing a blood test. So amino acids are circulating in the bloodstream. If a level of an amino acid is high, it usually means that it's not getting into the cells and that it's needs to be broken down better. And what breaks down amino acids is B vitamins. So for early detection of brain-related issues, what are you thinking about? Well, what's the brain dealing with? It's dealing with oxidative stress. In fact, I have some slides on this. Hang on, let me see. I think I might have buried them already, but this is a good example. I think Brian asked a question of just how to think through this whole process, I think. Let's see. Is this it? No, that's the wrong one. Oh, but while we're here, just review these 4 areas. So this is what we start off with. So total body burden assessment, assessing the organs of detox, got to do that, analyze the cellular damage, and then see how that's impacting the body. In this case, the question's on the brain. But what are the things that impact the brain? It's all the same stuff, right? By that I mean, it's oxidative stress, insulin resistance, it's problems with damage to lipids, damage to DNA, right? You end up with the same basic mechanisms triggering most of these problems. What you want to do is start with a really broad approach at first. Make sure the cells are healthy, make sure the organs can work before you get down to, you know, things that are too much in the weeds and are too much detail related stuff, because it's not going to help people. If they have a very broad problem, you need to start at the broad level and fix that first. But here, I'll show you for Brian's question about the brain. This is a slideshow from the class. Toxic brains, environmental drivers of neurodegeneration. So again, there's certain environmental toxins that are specific to, specifically found to cause brain issues. So you want to check for those, obviously, on the test. And then there's, let's see, mechanisms of neurotoxic damage. So you want to look at mitochondrial health, oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, these kinds of things. And then we tie it back to the hallmarks of aging, so you can see how that works as well. It's pretty important. Yeah, there's a whole series of lectures on that. And then I have a whole series of lectures, the same topic, the same idea for cardiovascular disease, same idea for metabolic dysfunction. So you can start to correlate in your brain how these things work together in an integrated way. Okay, let's see. We talked about that. I'm just going through the questions here. The toxin test is not done as a provoked test. When you want to specifically look at heavy metals, people do chelated testing or provoked testing. Many of these issues are genetically based. Many of these issues are genetically based. And the way you clear ammonia is with arginine and citrulline. Let's see, Allison's asking, curious about the mentorship after completion. Do you find the providers have a thriving practice? Well, I mean, you should. That's kind of the whole point of the program. If you don't develop a thriving practice within a year or two of taking one of my classes, whether it's this longevity course, we're also starting a mentorship class in September, then I kind of failed, and I don't like failing. So I'm going to do everything I can. There's some people that just fail miserably no matter what I do, but that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. You have to actively work at failing to fail. And part of in functional medicine, and part of the reason now is that in the old days, like when I started doing this 33 years ago, everybody failed in functional medicine because nobody knew what it was, and it was weird, and gluten-free was like crazy, and all of this stuff was just hard to sell people on. And so it's hard to get a practice going. So the only people that survived were the ones who were really good. And I was really good because I had Glenn Frieder in the other room telling me what to do every day. And then I had Dr. Timmons, on my speed dial. I lived in his house in his basement for like a bunch of times. So I just go upstairs and, Bill, what do I do? I had somebody to tell me what to do. So I was really good because I was being told what to do by really good people, But now you can be a crappy functional medicine person and be super successful because there's so many patients that want functional medicine services, and these patients have no way to know whether you're any good or not. There's no way to know if this functional medicine doctor down the street is good or not. So even people who are mediocre at this job are quite successful now. So again, like I said, you have to kind of actively work at failing it these days in order to fail, just because the public interest is so great. Can you see how glucuronidation, sulfate, or acetylation pathways are doing using Nutrafol? Yeah, absolutely. Because sulfation has to do with a sulfur amino acid, so you can see a lot there. Glucuronidation you see very clearly on a stool test, plus on with a whole bunch of others. And it's not like how can we say this? Like it's not always about this one-to-one thing. You have to just fix one pathway, right? So I'm trying to get that idea in your head so you can start to make these correlations. But generally, the liver detox pathways are treated as a group, right? Also. Glutathione, favorite products. I think the one, all my students tell me the best one these days is from Quicksilver, the Quicksilver brand of glutathione. Everybody agrees that's the best. In terms of, it's effective, but in terms of flavor and taste, Quicksilver is a brand. B6, you would use P5P form. You can get it from any of the major companies, Pure, Designs for Health, everybody has B6. But you got to know what you're doing with that. You have to, if you're using an individual B vitamin, you have to give B complex with it, and then you monitor it with a follow-up testing every 3 to 6 months. So what are your classes? What advantage of taking my classes versus IFM? Thank you, Eleanor. Great question. The way I conceptualize it, and people love this because it's true, IFM is like the medical school, and Kalish Institute is like the residency program. So you go to IFM to learn all this complicated stuff and get yourself grounded, and then you come to my classes to actually know, oh, it's how many milligrams of glycine? 6,000? Is that safe? Yeah. For how long? For 3 months. Then what do I do? Then you stop and retest. What brand do I use? Get the stuff from Designs for Health because they have it in a powder. So I can talk about brands and specific products and therapeutic dosages, and it's the residency program. This is like where people actually are working with real patients in real time. Every class that I teach is you working with your patients and submitting those labs. It's the residency version. IFM is the opposite. IFM is like the medical school. They have the most brilliant academic clinicians in the world that have created IFM, and they teach you the medical school version of this, and then I teach you the humdrum stuff, to be honest. It's glycine, Designs for Health, get the powder, it's $32 for a bottle, give them 6 grams a day, stop in 3 months and retest. That's my job, okay? Completely different than IFM. I've been to every IFM lecture like at least 4 or 5 times, maybe 6, okay? Totally support IFM in every way. It's just a different thing they're doing. They're not going to tell you it's Designs for Health 6 grams a day because they're doing CME stuff. They can't talk about brands. Let's see, I think we got most of these questions. Lisa signed up. Well, that's good. Thank you, Lisa. Can heavy metal toxins be removed via food? Oh, Marcella. So you absolutely can remove heavy metals and environmental toxins with diet. I have seen that clearly. Many years ago, I worked for this group called Metabolic Typing, and we had 5 years of detox data on patients, and all the intervention that they did was to change their diets. These people changed their diets, and every 6 months, starting in the beginning, they tested for heavy metals. Can you believe that? I was just teaching classes for them. We had all this data. And what you would see was very predictable. When people started to eat a healthy diet, their heavy metal levels would shoot up because they were getting rid of them. This was hair analysis, right? So you could see them coming out. And then over the course of the 5 years, they would gradually drop down. So you can absolutely get heavy metals out with food. Yes, I've seen that in thousands and thousands of people. Is this separate from organic acids course? Yep, this is totally different. Although we look at organic acids, but a completely different framework. Yeah. I don't know that brand, Dan. Research Nutritionals. I just haven't heard of them. Okay. The whole point of supplements is that they're supplemental to the primary changes that people need to make. Now, if you're high in ammonia, if you have a lot of ammonia in your body and your orotic acid is high, you're not going to be able to eat your way out of that. So there's times when, or if your glutathione levels are really low, you need to take glutathione. That's like a DEFCON 10 kind of problem. Do you also then eat the foods that have glutathione in them? Yeah, of course you do. Of course you eat your broccoli every day, but you use the supplements for that first 6 to 12 months to fix all the lab markers, and then the diet and lifestyle stuff becomes the ongoing treatment. If you just try to fix all these things with diet alone, it just takes too long. I don't think it's safe. I think we should be doing both. Okay. So favorite lab companies, we're going to end on this question. Vibrant Health has the Total Tox screen. Genova has the NutriVal. Diagnostic Solutions has GI Map, and they have an organic acids profile or omics test also. And then Doctors Data is one of the most famous, long-standing detox testing companies out there. So Doctors Data has the original, that's going back to the 1970s, testing for toxin-related issues, especially heavy metals. They're kind of the most famous for doing that. So Doctors Data for heavy metals, Genova for the NutriVal, Vibrant for the Total Tox screen, and then DSL Labs for GI Map and the omics test. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up for now. Thank you for chatting and connecting, and I hope to see some of you in class. All right, bye for now.